Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. Today we have J.R. Bird, and J.R. We had you before. I mean, you're in the CD3 race now.
Absolutely, yeah. So we were in the Senate race when we talked
Yeah.
before. And then obviously John Curtis decided to jump in the Senate race. He's in CD3. I'm a member of CD3. And we just had a lot of people come out of the woodwork and ask us to run in that race. And so after, quite a bit of consideration, we decided that that was the best path forward. So,
Tell me what should people know about you?
oh goodness. Well, in CD3, when we talked before, we talked about a lot of the federal issues that we face. We talked about the budget, energy, the border, and foreign policy. What's unique about CD3 is a lot of those things overlap. Energy is one of the major things in CD3 that I think people are looking at. I think that's a big reason why people reached out to us is our experience in the energy sector. The public lands is a big issue in CD3.
Right.
And we live in an area where there's a lot of BLM and public land, and so we understand those issues. And I think people wanted somebody with those or with that background to represent them in that
So
area.
you basically you grew up in that industry.
Yeah. The oil and gas industry, public lands, the water issues that we face as a state and in CD3, those are things that I've experienced and have background in and experienced my whole life. And so
Let's talk about your background before. I mean, you were in the oil and gas business, right?
yes, sir.
And so talk to us a little bit. Let people know what you're doing, what you have been doing, right?
My first experience in the oil and gas industry was in construction. And so actually with a crane operation. And we set up pumping units. Those are the units that extract the oil, and pump the oil out of the ground. So that was my first experience, and that was right after high school. And then, went on a mission. When I got back, went back to the oil and gas industry.
Where'd you go? I don't think.
I went to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Yeah,
So did you learn Spanish there?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, and I love that place. I love the Latin people, great people. But, upon my return, went back to the oil and gas industry, worked construction, pipelining, and those types of things. And then I got offered a job in the supply industry, worked that for 5 years. When I got that job, I didn't know it, but that store was losing money, and it had been for over a year. And so when I went to work there, after 2 months, they made me the manager. And 3 months later, we had our first month in the black.
And this was when you were in your early 20s.
I was 23 when I took that
23.
job.
Interesting.
And so after 5 years, they sold the company. And when they sold, dollar for dollar, our store was the most profitable store throughout the nation, which I thought was pretty good, going from, losing money in 5 years to making money. I saw I had a knack in that, industry and with doing that, and started my own business in that same industry.
So what did your business do?
Same thing, supplies in the oil and gas. So pipe, valves, fittings, those types of things to plumb the oil from the wellhead to the tanks, and then get it from the tanks onto the trucks, and then ultimately to the refineries. So we participate in that.
He had John Curtis in about a week ago, and he started talking about a lot of the problems. There's a real war on oil and gas, on any fossil fuel, right?
Sure.
I kind of liked his approach to, saying that, as a conservative, we really need to.
Yeah, and in fact, I think John has done a decent job in telling the real story of the extraction industry, the oil and gas industry, the coal industry. And he's talked a lot about the mitigation that's happening to, mitigate the negative impacts of those industries on the environment, which I think is good, because I think we talked about this before when I was on your show.
Right.
Nobody does it better than us in the United States. And in my mind, in the Uinta Basin, we take care of our environment here. Look at Russia and a few other oil producers, and compared to us, it's very dirty how they produce their oil. So John is really focused on, those negative impacts of the oil and gas industry and how they're being mitigated here in our country. What I want to focus on and add to that are the social and economical and health benefits of the oil and gas industry that really don't get talked about. So yes, we're taking care of the negative impacts, but look at all the positive things. that the oil and gas industry has brought to our society. And those are some of the stories that we need to tell as well.
You know, it's interesting. I visited out there, and it was interesting when I saw the oil that was coming out of the ground. A lot of wax in that oil.
Yeah.
It's really good for a lot of different things other than just gasoline, right?
Oh, absolutely. Pharmaceuticals, plastics, I mean, you name it. So the medical industry, you know, you look at, everybody wants to talk about electric vehicles and they want to talk about all of these other things. Well, you look at the amount of oil products that go in to produce those, and we're never going to completely eliminate it. And so that waxy crude is where a lot of those things, it has a lot of I would say those characteristics that are beneficial in those areas. So.
Right. So when you look at that from a policy perspective, what are the kinds of things you're going to be pushing for along those lines?
Well, that's a good question. That's a great question, and we were just talking with Rob Bishop about this earlier today. And really, there needs to be we talk about the energy sector, and a lot of times that is affected by the executive orders in the presidencies. And so we've seen these pendulum shifts between energy and oil and gas from Trump to Biden, and even before that. And it can be devastating. But what I would like to see is a 50-year master plan. In Roosevelt or any other city, you have a master plan that dictates how you move forward with, your growth and everything else. And that master plan really guides your legislation and those things that you do, your day-to-day decisions. On a federal level, we need a 50-year energy master plan. And that master plan really should guide and direct our decisions federally to make sure if we're going to transition, that's fine, but it's going to be calculated and there's going to be processes and steps put in place to make that a smooth transition. And what does that do to the oil and gas industry in the nation? It stabilizes that industry. We have that smooth transition, but ultimately who benefits is the public, because they're not caught in this, this huge pendulum shift between energy policies that is super devastating to the general public.
Yeah, that really does need some work, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you saw the bill that just came out from the state legislature, but we're going to severely push back against the federal government.
I've heard about that. Yeah, I haven't read all of it, but I've heard about that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think that's a crucial thing for Utah, and especially the part of Utah that you live, right?
Absolutely. So CD3, if you look at the eastern side of the state, I mean, it is the largest energy producer in the state. And it's interesting that if you section it off, I don't think they could have drawn the lines any better to have, the coal and oil and gas industry all in one section of a district. But they have, and that's what it encompasses. And it's a major issue, not only for us in our district, but the whole state.
Well, let's take a break, and we'll come right back.
All right. with us. Don't vote for us. If you believe in limited government, securing our border, guarding American jobs, rescuing our constitutional rights, and putting regular people ahead of special interests, join me. Let's work together for a better future for our children.
I'm Rod Bird Jr. It's time America hears from one of us.
Welcome back to PoliticIt, where we've got J.R. Bird here and candidate for CD3.
Yes, sir.
So we were talking a little bit about, we talked about oil and gas, and one of the things I think that's important to the state is the federal lands issues, and you touched on that a little bit. But what's your idea for helping us get control of our own destiny?
So yeah, that's a great question, and to give you an idea of how the federal lands affect even the oil and gas industry and a lot of our uses. We're talking about the national monuments and those types of things that are affected because the federal government has purview over those lands. But as it relates to oil and gas, for example, when President Biden put the executive order out there to restrict drilling on federal lands, that really impacted our state. It pushed a lot of that drilling onto private land, which is okay. But how we get that back, I know, again, Rob Bishop was one that fought very hard. Celeste Malloy is one that's going to fight very hard to get that control back to the states and those lands back to the states. But I think it's important to note that, the fact that those lands are public, I think is a benefit to all of us. And so as we look to bring those lands back under the jurisdiction of the state, I think we need to make sure that we have things in place to maintain public use of a lot of that land and not privatize it or commercialize it. And so there's a lot of things that we need to think about and talk about. Ultimately, we definitely want our state in charge of those lands. I think there's nobody better to decide how those lands are used than those that are closest to those lands, which are us. I don't want somebody from back east telling us or determining how we're going to use those lands. But I do think there's some protections that we need to put in place as we look at bringing those lands back into the jurisdiction of the state.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it's really important that we focus on that, though.
Yeah.
And Rob Bishop was a real loss.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of kind of guiding our destiny. He was kind of one of the more quiet guys behind the scenes, but what he was able to do, I think, was really important for us.
Sure.
So what are the other issues that are important to you?
Well, I think another issue that is important to our district is water, and I not only in the rural setting but also on the Wasatch Front. So a lot of people, I don't know if they realize, but Central Utah Water Conservancy District takes up 7 counties in the state. All but one of those counties is within CD3. 290 some odd thousand acre feet of water comes from Duchesne County over the hill to the Wasatch County to provide water. Making sure that we have federal monies to assist in water projects, I think, is a big deal. But also, one of the biggest challenges I think we face right now in the water arena is the I wouldn't call it a battle, the challenge that we're having between the upper and the lower basin. And so if you don't understand that, just know that there are 4 states in the upper basin where water has been appropriated, and then the rest, and it's from the Colorado River. So that Colorado River and that water flows down through another 4 states that are considered the lower basin. Well, they've been using more water than allocated from the 1922 compact, and we haven't been using all of our water, but we are wanting to develop it now. And so there has been a struggle between those two entities to see where that water is going to end up. And as well as I do, with Utah being an arid state, with water already being a challenge, we definitely need to make sure that we protect our rights to that water. That's why the Colorado Water River Authority of Utah, it's kind of a long name, but that's why that was created, with Gene Shawcroft at the head of that as the chair, and really protecting those water rights for CD3, because a lot of the water used in a big portion of the state comes from that district, from CD3.
Yeah. So any other things that really are at the top of your mind in terms of why J.R. Bird, right? Why should people vote for you?
Well, I feel like I have unique qualifications for CD3. I'm from the Uinta Basin. I grew up. These issues that we face in CD3 are issues that I've dealt with my whole life because of where I've lived and where I grew up. Energy comes naturally to me. Water issues come naturally. I'm an ag producer as well, so I understand the difference between ag water, M&I water, the different uses, priorities. And so, that's something that I understand very well. We talk about immigration. I've been involved with the Latin community there, as it relates to, more of the federal issues, budgetary issues. I'm a business owner. I'm very good at finances. I've taken failing businesses and turned them around. So this is my wheelhouse. So I would say, there's a lot of good people in this race, but what it will come down to is expertise and experience and what we've been able to accomplish and what we'll do when we get to Washington.
Very good.
So,
well, we're about out of time. Okay. So any parting thoughts you might have?
All I would say is if you want somebody that, in Roosevelt, Utah, as the mayor, there were a lot of difficult things that we did there. There was transparency issues that we fixed. The things that we were able to accomplish as far as like the budgetary issues. Just the experience that I've had there in Roosevelt will play very well into the things that we need in Washington. And I would say if you want somebody like that and with that experience, I would ask for your vote.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rod Bird, JR, thank you for coming, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.